Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome to my channel. I'm Shelly, and today I'm going to be wrapping up what I read in the month of September, and it was a phenomenal reading month for me. I got through quite a good amount of books, a number of books, and a lot of them were wonderful. So the way I'm going to structure this video is I have broken my books up into categories. I'll put the categories as chapters down in the description so that it's really easy for everybody to navigate if you want to navigate. And if you just want to see my outstanding reads for the month, you can go and watch that. If you're interested in my entire month, then you can watch the entire thing. But I want my videos to be navigatable. I want y'all to be able to navigate my videos, especially if they're a little bit on the longer side. And I have a feeling that because I'm such a chatty person, that I will, chat. Because I'm such a chatty person, I might end up chatting quite a bit throughout this video, and it might be quite long. So, a couple of more personal things. I had a sinus infection earlier in the month, which I was so thankful for antibiotics because that really helped clear the sinus infection out. It was a nasty sinus infection. And then in the last week, I've been working on quitting coffee, so I've been going through caffeine withdrawals. But now I'm finally feeling a lot better, and I'm just excited to wrap up this month with you and move on to new reading endeavors. Okay, so my first category is disappointing children's reads. These were kind of at the bottom of the pile. I have two books. They will come to no surprise for any of you who catch all of my videos, and I will link. I'll link all of the videos in which I talk about these books because I have mentioned quite a few of them in previous wrap-ups or standalone videos, and then I'm going to chat a little bit more about the books I haven't yet talked about. So, disappointing children's reads. The first one was The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket. I talked about not really caring for the snarky narrator, the sarcasm that permeates the story and permeates throughout the book. And some people thought it was quite odd. A lot of people said that the sardonic sense of humor is that of Edward Gorey. And I love Edward Gorey. I think his humor is quite funny, and I am delighted by his dark humor. But for whatever reason, this didn't work out so much. This was published in, The Bad Beginning was published in 1999. I do have another one of the series of unfortunate event books on my 1001 children's books you must read before you grow up. And so I will be reading another one of the books, and I wonder if the story is more new to me, if I will like the reading experience more. So I'm actually curious about the next book I will read from Lemony Snicket, even though I didn't get along with this particular book. The next one is Witch Child. Witch Child was published in 2000 and it was written by Celia Reese. It is the diary of a witch in the 1800s, and this is a fictional story, though. I don't want to say that it's not. It's a fictional story. So a fictional diary of a young witch, self-proclaimed witch in the 1800s, and I ultimately thought that the book was kind of boring. Once I got into the read, I thought the second half was stronger than the first, but not my favorite. Okay, my next category, not what I expected. And I have three books in this category. The first one is The Red Pony by John Steinbeck, written in 1945, and was one of the contributing books that won him the Nobel Peace Prize. I went into this thinking that I would love it. I thought, oh yes, this is exactly what I'm going to read, something about humanity, something that will that talks about us as human beings and how we live on this earth together. And I didn't really get that. This was more of a quieter story with beautiful descriptions of nature and with some brutality, mostly surrounding the young protagonist who is learning about about life. So life is so general, about navigating, you know, when adults tell you something that's untrue, and other things. What I didn't expect about this was that it is 4 short stories put together in this little novella, and the stories don't have a lot of cohesion. They have the same characters, but I would have loved to see more of a strong narrative. And though the stories were delightful in their own way, I really missed more of a traditional narrative throughout, or a traditional plot diagram type thing, plotty story. So that's The Red Pony, so just not quite what I expected. The next one would be The Lover by Marguerite Duras. Silgy on her channel, I'll link her channel below. She mentioned this in one of the tags that she did recently, and I was like, oh, I have that book on my shelf, and I would love to get to it. I have not yet talked about this on my channel, so I'm gonna talk about it now. So this is translated by Bray, and it was published in 1984. What I expected this to be would be a romantic love story. And though this is a love story, it is really more about our young protagonist and the way she... One second, let me think about this. 1 second. Okay, I got a little tripped up because I thought I didn't remember the protagonist's name, and then I just realized, and after I looked it up, because I was like, did she even have a name? No. So it follows the young protagonist, who is about 15 years old. She's a young lady. She is living in Saigon, in a boarding school in Saigon, and she falls in love with an older Chinese man. That's what they call him in the book. And older as in like maybe 12 years older than her. And I thought that this would be sort of a romantic love story that would sweep me away in this little novella. And really what it was more was the way that her family, her very dysfunctional family, how they function, and what this love meant to her as almost an escape from her mother and her older brother, who are both odd, well, not odd, they're both emotionally unhealthy people. And so the story sort of unravels, and as she's talking about her lover, really, her older lover, who's rich, and Asian, she's French, and so there's this dynamic of class that is dealt with, there's this dynamic of race that is dealt with, and it ended up being a lot more complex than I thought it would be. So my expectation of it being a light love story really was defied in this read. 1 sec. All right, and then my third book that I didn't expect, it wasn't what I expected, was Daphnis and Chloe by Longus. Now, this was published in the 2nd century, or first written in the 2nd century AD, and it's translated by Paul Turner. So this is the oldest written book in all of my books that I have laying in front of me, and this is the story of 2 young lovers who are discovering what love is, quite literally for the first time. Like, they don't even have a word for love, and so they have to figure it out. I found it quite delightful. Actually, there's so much in here. There's love, betrayal, jealousy. It really, because it's so slim, it almost feels like the outline to a romance novel. Like if somebody was interested in writing a romance novel, they could say, here, this is the outline of it, and I'm just going to fill out the characters and fill out the dialogue. Daphnis and Chloe are 2 young people who are shepherd and shepherdess, and they fall in love, and there's little twists and turns, and ultimately it was a really light read, and I devoured it within a day or so. I really enjoyed this. This is the second Greek thing that I've read in about a month, and I've loved both of them, so I'm really interested in reading more ancient Greek things. So very much not what I expected, and very much enjoyed this read. Okay, my next category is excellent children's books. I talked about all of these before, so I'll kind of go through this pretty quickly, but there is, let's see, From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler by E.L. Coningsburg. This was a fantastic story about two kids who ran away to a museum and then try and solve a mystery at the museum while they're there. Just a delightful story. The narrator, she's is snarky and a little sardonic. I just really enjoyed this story, and I thought it was quite a brilliant children's book. All right, published in 1958, The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Spear. It's a historical fiction book about a young woman named Kit who is living, I believe, in the 1800s, and she takes herself from Barbados to the United States and gets settled in a small little settlement there full of Puritans, and it really clashes with some of her more open-minded ideals. And this was just a fantastic read. Elizabeth George Spear, I looked up, she only wrote 5 books in her career, and 3 of them won very high accolades for children's books. And man, I just thought, what a talented writer she is. And so if you're interested, if you want to get into like the spooky mood, I would highly recommend The Witch of Blackbird Pond. It's also it's like a children's modern classic. I would imagine that this will actually, I would hope that this is remembered as it ages, because it is just so precious. All right, so then I have this small short poetry collection by Charles Closley, and it's illustrated by Trina Short-Hyman, and this was just a delightful book of poems, a lot in here. The introduction helped me understand more of Closley's brilliance. He references Shakespeare. He has a work of nonsense poems, which I read on Poetry Thursday, and there's just a lot of playfulness and a lot of life in this little poetry collection. So if you're interested in something that is really light and enjoyable, I would highly recommend Figgy Hoban, which I don't think I said until right now. Figgy Hoban. And then finally, in my excellent children's book category, it would be The Bridge to Terabithia, and this is by Catherine Patterson, published in 1977. A fantastic book about two young people, a boy and a girl, and they end up becoming friends. And the young lady, oh man, one second, I'm gonna look up their names. I forgot, one second. Okay, so I had to look up the names. So Jesse is our male protagonist, and then his foil character would be Leslie, and she is the new neighbor who comes from a pretty open-minded household, and Leslie moves from a large town to this small little teeny town, and they become friends. And Leslie, she's a reader, she's very imaginative, and she's super creative, and she teaches Jesse how to do that. But my favorite feature, okay, I do love the friendship, but one of the things that I thought was great about this was the cow. Okay, hear me out. The cow. I grew up in farm country, and one of the things that we talked about often at church, oh, one sec. I'm not saying that I have a vast knowledge of cows, but what I do know of cows is that you have to milk them every day. It's something that we actually talked about in church quite a bit, because the commandment to make the Sabbath holy is in regards to like not working. That's how it's interpreted a lot. And so farmers are sometimes in a moral predicament, because they if you don't milk a cow, it can actually cause a lot of pain and infections. It can actually, the cow could die from that. And so in Bridge to Terabithia, Patterson, she actually wrote in a cow that is on Jesse's property, and that is his job to milk, and the milking of the cow is something that he has to do every day, and that she doesn't forget. It's one of the things where if he goes off and is off in Wonderland and playing and with Leslie, that he has to remember to milk this cow every day, and that ends up being a significant figure in the book. And I was like, yes, I'm so glad she got it right. I'm so glad she got it right, and she didn't like forget about the cow, or the cow was insignificant, because the cow was really important, and it was really important to me that she got it right. Okay, let's go. So those are my outstanding children's books. Two books that were, I would say that they were influential reads in regards to the historical context and the historical influence that they had moving forward. So I have two books in this category, and that would be Rudyard Kipling's Just So Stories. This was quite a brutal read. Brutal isn't like for a kid's book. The animals are not playing nice. They want to eat each other. They want to kill each other. It's all about like the animal kingdom, but it's also the origin story of creation. And Rudyard Kipling writes to that. This was published in 1902. I had started it last month and I was just reading it quite slowly. Kipling writes short stories about the beginning of the alphabet, the beginning of language, the beginning of writing, these origin stories that are set in the jungle and set in that atmosphere, which was really compelling. And I was glad to read this because I could see the influence that it had later on. And so it's like, how a camel got its hump, why a certain creature is the way that it is, how the ocean got its waves, all of that. And then later I could see and connect the dots of like other picture books that were inspired by the animal kingdom and these creation origin stories in it. I thought of Elmer, the picture book Elmer. I thought of quite a few, but I'm not going to connect them all now. But yeah, Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling. Also, he does this affectation where he starts off and you're just reading, and then he starts to call you beloved, and then oh dear beloved as the stories progress. And so it feels like the relationship that I was having with the narrator was actually becoming more intimate as I read it. So a very, very interesting read and a very good one. And I would encourage anybody who's interested in older children's lit to pick it up and give it a go. And then the last one, which I thought was super ancient, and then I looked it up like on camera and I realized it was published in 1954, which is not ancient, by the way. And it's Lavender Blues, a book of nursery rhymes. And the reason why I thought it was more ancient than what it was is because of the nursery rhyme component. And really what Kathleen Lines did, who was the person who compiled this book, is that she took the traditional nursery rhymes and she put them in a book. And so the nursery rhymes are much older than the 1954 publishing date, but that's just when this particular copy was published. And as I was reading, a lot of books that I'm familiar with, I thought of like The Napping House and how that is truly a nursery rhyme that is based off of older nursery rhymes that I read in this book. And I thought that was really, really interesting and an absolute delight. So it was absolutely great to read both this and Just So Stories. Okay, and then my final category was outstanding adult novels, two of which I've talked about on my channel, and then one I have not. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. This was published in 1925, and it is a stream of consciousness narrative told by a bunch of different people. And it's really a day in the life in London. Beautiful writing. I definitely want to read this again, and according to my plans, I will. And just a true delight to get a taste of Virginia Woolf in this manner, and I'm hooked. I want to read more of her. Then the rave, the video in which I raved about this book, which was An Unnecessary Woman by Rabi Alaminde. This was a fantastic book, which was a character study of a woman who lives mostly a solitary life in Beirut, and every year she translates a book. I just really loved her. I loved the character, and the way that I thought of her was that if she was a booktuber, I would watch her channel. And she's talking about a whole bunch of pieces of literature I've never read, some of which I've never heard of, and part of me was like, I don't care, because I like her. I liked the main character, and I forget, what is her name? Aaliyah. I loved Aaliyah, and again, if she was running a BookTube channel, I would be her #1 subscriber. I would be there for her because I just found her so interesting and so endearing. Yeah, so highly recommend this if you're interested in like a very bookish, bibliophile-y read. And then the final book, which I read as a buddy read with Miss Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, and that was Hillenbrand's, Laura Hillenbrand's Unbroken, and this was published in 2010. One sec. Okay, so as I was saying, Unbroken by Lauren Hillenbrand, published in 2010, follows the story of Louis Zamperini, who was an Olympic runner, and he fought in World War II, and I saw Nikki from Red Dog Reads talk about this book and how much she loved it. This book is a gift from my parents. Both of my parents read this and loved it. I can see why they love it so much. Not only is Hillenbrand an extremely engaging author, but she tells an absolutely harrowing and compelling story about what it is like to be a prisoner of war in Japan during World War II, which I have never read a book with that perspective in mind. And Louis Zamperini is an absolutely phenomenal person, and again, it was incredibly engaging, although there were moments that were really, really difficult to read. Sandy and I, we read about 40 pages a day, and we checked in every single day about it, and her and I were both like, oh my goodness, it's so good. Like, it's so hard to stop reading. Oh my goodness, it's so good. It's so hard to stop reading. And it was just not only the way that Hillenbrand wrote the story, but the story that she told was just fantastic. And just one that I would highly, highly recommend, especially since Nonfiction November is coming up. Okay, well, that is my large pile of books that I read this month. It was just a fantastic reading month. I hope you all had a wonderful reading month. Tell me, what was your standout read for the month? I want to know. I want to know. Not that I need any more recommendations for books because I just have so much going on. But I want to know what you love this month. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all for watching this video and spending this time with me. I appreciate it. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.